let's open with a joke. So, once upon a time, there were three friends who went hiking in the Scottish Highlands. There was a journalist, a physicist, and a mathematician. They went hiking, and then, at one point, they spot on a hill yonder, they spot two black sheep. So the journalist sees that and says, well, I'm in the Scottish Highlands, I just saw two black sheep, so I can conclude that all sheep are black. Because that's how some journalists treat statistics. The physicist looks at him and goes, I think you're being a little too quick to jump to conclusions here. I think it's safer to conclude that there are black sheep in Scotland. But the mathematician, she looks at them, looks at her watch, and then she goes, I conclude that on the 14th of January 2021 at 12:52 there were on this hill in Scotland two sheep that were black on at least one side. Because mathematicians like to be exact. Hello there, I'm Simon. Welcome to my channel. The time has come to go back in time again and continue our journey through the history of Belgium. Of course, I'll leave links everywhere links are to be found, so you can go watch the first 3 episodes if you haven't done that yet. Go ahead, I'll still be here when you get back. Now, where did we leave those Belgians? Oh yes, the Carolingians. So, Charlemagne is the king of what is basically France, Germany and Belgium, right? Actually, emperor even. Now, you may remember that Clovis used to divide his empire amongst his sons because of the Salic law, leading to a civil war to win control of the rest of it. And of course, wise as he was, Charlemagne, with the benefit of hindsight, would be smarter and actually left his empire to just one successor, right? Right? Well, yes, actually. He left it to his son, Louis the Pious, who was very pious, I think. Problem is that he, in turn, did make that mistake again, because history repeats itself. Always. So, upon his death, a bit of a conflict arose amongst his sons. Lothar, first of his name, Louis the German, guess where he lived, and Charles the Bald. Not the bald, the bald. As in, he had no hair. And he clearly wasn't self-conscious about it. So, they had a bit of a civil war, which ended in the Treaty of Verdun in 843. They just cut the empire into 3 parts. The empire came with an emperor's title, and since they couldn't really give all of them the title, because I guess that would diminish the sanctity of the title, they just gave the title to Lothar, who was literally just the oldest. And that division, coupled with the idea of feudalism, provides the basis for the political structure of what is to come. But then, guess what? Another invasion. A bunch of them actually. It's time for the Vikings. Because this is the 9th century, so of course there's Vikings. What did you expect? I'm not going to go into detail here, because Vikings can be a complicated subject if you want to do it justice. And they never really settled in the Belgian areas anyway. But if you're interested, ask your local history teacher. But the Vikings were really good at what they did. Like, they got as far as Istanbul and created a long-standing legacy in the UK. So it's no surprise that they visited these lands as well. So because of that, our ancestors began building like huge walls and fortresses to defend themselves against those what they saw as barbarians. But it wasn't enough to stop them, and they kept coming back for more. At least until 891, when the current king, Arnulf of Carinthia, beat them in battle. That was near Leuven, actually, where I am right now. And of course, after that, the Vikings were like, well, not doing that again. This guy's scary. Let's not go back there. And they didn't return to our shores. Meanwhile, Flanders is born. At least, it became a county. Like, with a count and everything. It used to be the so-called Pagus Flandrensis, which was like a shire under the Franks and Merovingians. But it became a county when the first count, Baldwin with the Iron Arm, which is frankly a name that commands respect, decided he wanted to be the count. Now, before this happened, Baldwin was friends with someone called Louis the Stammerer, who was the son of the aforementioned Charles the Bald. Through that friendship, Baldwin met that guy's sister, Judith, and they kinda sorta fell in love. But he was just a lowly son of a forester, according to the legend anyway, and she was the daughter of a king. Star-crossed lovers. Now, she had been used as a pawn in the political game of her dad, but she was kinda getting bored with that, so they ran away together. Obviously, Daddy the King didn't like that, and tried to prosecute them. But because they asked the Pope for help, they made a truce with their dad. And part of that truce involved Baldwin becoming Count of Flanders, according to legend. A fine example of courtly love, if you ask me. Anyway, when you think of Flanders, you might think of like the region of Flanders, because that's what it is today. But at that time, it was just a bit around Bruges, what's now the province of West Flanders, basically. It was also, let me make this very clear, part of France, through this thing called feudalism. And it will remain so for quite a while, on paper anyway. In reality, they kinda went their own way, and went to conquer more and more land to make that county bigger. Because that's how powers work, and everyone else was doing it. And eventually, by the 11th century, feudalism created a new patchwork of a political landscape. And it's during this period of feudalism that cities grow, and become an important player. From the 10th century onward, a lot of cities are granted more and more rights, and that includes economic rights, like the right to organize a market and such. Also, they were granted rights that essentially allowed them to be governed not by a feudal lord, but by themselves. I'm simplifying immensely here, but that's basically true. And this is one of those cases of what came first, the chicken or the egg. But that also came with an economic and demographic growth, meaning, in actual human language, that trade and such flourished, and the population grew. Meanwhile, the Duchy of Brabant was born. This happened when a guy called Lambert I of Leuven kinda just decided to conquer those lands. His family had been wanting to become duke for a while, and basically was the first to actually succeed. Emperor Otto II of many, because technically all of this is still part of the Carolingian Empire, remember? Making Otto the feudal lord of everything, made him the Count of Leuven. Of course, as was tradition, they kept conquering and embiggening their area, until in 1183 it became a duchy, under Count and then Duke Henry I. Reason being that Henry was such a brave guy during the Crusades, that he did not only win himself the epithet the Brave, no relation to the film, but he was also made Duke of Brabant. And by this point, the 12th century has come round. And with that comes what we call the 12th century Renaissance. Carolingian Renaissance, 12th century Renaissance, Italian Renaissance. You know, when you go through history, there's so many Renaissances that it starts to feel like there's nothing special about it anymore. It's almost like there's just waves of ups and downs throughout history. And I don't know why, but I feel like Kondratiev waves would be a great name for such a phenomenon. You heard it here first. But I was talking about the 12th century Renaissance, wasn't I? I suppose a Renaissance was sort of to be expected after those political resets and all that demographic and economic flourishing. And all that kinda goes hand in hand with like literary developments and technological innovations, all of which only increases all of that. It's like a vicious cycle, but positive. There has to be a term for that. And of course, at some point, that bubble of positivity has to burst. But I'm not talking about that now. In fact, I'm not gonna be talking about a whole lot anymore this episode. This feels like a great place to stop for today. Be back for the next episode though, because it's getting exciting. Next episode, I'm talking about the Dukes of Burgundy. Probably. Time for the YouTube thing. You know the drill, people. If you detected any mistakes I might have made, or you have anything to add, feel free to let us know down below by leaving a comment. And if you have any questions about any of this, feel free to ask them. Also remember that you can like the video by clicking that little like button below. And if you like history and nerdiness, I think you'll like the rest of my channel too, so you can go to my channel and check it out. And if you like it, please consider subscribing. And don't forget to ring that bell, so it actually counts. Why does it matter? Why are 2 steps better than 1 click? I don't know, ask YouTube. I do know it's true though, so please do it. It helps the channel. And of course, share the video with all your nerdy friends. And down below you can find my sources and my socials. And with that, I bid thee adieu. Thanks for watching.